Hi everybody, welcome to the September Creating Kindness Design Team video on Blog Hop. I'm Lou Kitzelman and I live on the Sunshine Coast, Australia. As usual, we have a video and a blog hop happening, and you'll find the link to both my blog and the next person's video in the information panel below this video. So our September theme is circles, which is quite a large scope, and I thought I'd use that to get me started on my Christmas cards. Now, I'm one of those people who are always scrabbling around at the last minute trying to get my cards finished. And every year I vow and declare that I'm just going to get them started earlier the next year. So I thought this is going to be the year I'll get started. I can't guarantee that I'll be able to find them when I go to look for them, but at least I've started. So I thought that I would come up with a simple design, because when I'm designing things like Christmas cards where I need to make a lot at the same time or all at once, I just don't have time to make really fancy folds for everybody. It doesn't mean that I love them any less, it just means that I just simply don't have time. So I decided that I would use the motto that I quite often use, minimum effort, maximum effect. It really just means working smarter, not harder, because time is really limited. So I came up with a design that I thought would really work well in lots of different colours. So it's a great way to mass produce but not get really bogged down and bored with the design. Sorry, Millie's just jumped in for a little hello. I was doing so well I thought I had her all occupied, but anyway. Oh, Mill, say hi to everybody. Oh dear. Okay, I'll switch the camera around now, and hopefully it'll just be me and not Millie and I showing you how I made these great cards. Okay, see you in a moment. Okay, so I've done a bit of cat wrangling. I've got the scar to prove it. And of course now Millie's firmly ensconced on my office chair, and I'm sitting on the old dodgy chair. But if you've got cats, you'll understand that that's just how it has to be. There's a definite hierarchy in our house, and I know exactly where my place is. So let's get on to the cards. I made these really fun cards with these baubles. And all I've done is I've used the same design on all of them and just changed up the colours, and Stampin' Up makes it so easy to do that because the cardstock and the ink and the ribbons all match. So I've got Calypso Coral, Lemon Lime Twist, and I've got Tranquil Tide on this one, and I've just added some Lemon Lime Twist for the sentiment because I wanted it to actually be bright. If it's saying may your Christmas be bright, I didn't want it to be dull, and the Tranquil Tide just was lost a bit with the black embossing. So just by using the black embossing powder and heat embossing it and adding the different inks, you get a different look depending on what colour you use, and it's a really fun way and quick and easy way to make a set of cards without having to do too much thinking. So I've used this great stamp set called Making Christmas Bright, and it's from the 2018 Stampin' Up! Holiday Catalogue, which was launched on September the 5th, which was yesterday if you're watching this, the day that this video is launched. So there's lots of great products in there, and this is one of my favourites. It comes with a punch that punches out these baubles, but today I'm just using this stamp set. I've used this great circle here. It's got some dots and stars, and it's something that I know I'm going to use a lot for lots of different occasions, and it was perfect for the circle theme for this hop and also to make the baubles. And I've used this strip of stars here for the hanger on the baubles. Okay, I did start off the design using just one bauble, and I also used shimmery white cardstock, but I just wasn't happy with my shading. But that design would be perfect if you just wanted something a bit quicker to do. On all my others I've used watercolour paper, and it's just helped me get a bit more shading. And I think you can see the nice shine there of the embossing powder. So let's have a quick look at how I made these. So I've got my watercolour paper. If you're using A4 cardstock, I've cut it 9 by 13.3 centimeters, and if you're using the letter size cardstock, it's 3.5 by 4.75 inches. Now, normally when I'm doing something like this, where I'm doing some masking, so if I bring my sample back in, you can see that I haven't overlapped the bauble here. Normally I would stamp one whole bauble, put my mask over the top, and then stamp the next one, but because I'm using embossing powder, I'm doing it in the reverse. And normally something like this I would use my Stamparatus, which is a really great stamping tool, but for this particular card it works best just to stamp it. So I'm just using my embossing buddy, and I'm putting quite a bit of the powder that's in the embossing buddy on there. That just takes all the moisture out of the cardstock and really helps so that you don't get extra embossing powder stuck where you don't want it. Now I've stamped the circle and I've cut it out just on a sticky note, and I've made quite a few of these. I'm hoping that it'll last for one more. I've popped an arrow on it. I think about there will be good. Because the stamp is not completely symmetrical, so I just popped a little sticky note on the stamp as well, just so that I know which way I placed up, just in case it's slightly not quite circular. So I pop that on. I've got my Versamark ink, and I've also got my black embossing powder ready to go over here. I'll bring that in a moment. So I've got my circle masked off. I'm just going to stamp, ink with the Versamark. Stamp that. Take my mask off, and then I'm just going to use my black embossing powder. This is an embossing tray that Stampin' Up! Used to sell quite a few years ago. You can't buy them anymore, but it's a really great tool for embossing because it keeps all your powder in there. Now don't worry about these extra little bits here. We're going to get either a little paintbrush or a cotton bud and remove all of those, but we've just got to do a little bit more embossing, so we'll get rid of the rest of those in a moment. So we've done our one bauble. We're going to come back in with our Versamark and do our other one, and I'm going to be very careful and try and butt it up to where I stamped the other one. And just before I get my embossing powder, I'm also going to put the bauble hangers in, just so I can do my heat embossing all in one go. I'll bring my embossing powder back in, tip that on, and of course when I'm finished, this great tray allows me to just pour it back into my little pot ready to use again. So I find with the black, sometimes I need to pour it on a second time and it just sticks a bit more. So let's just give it a good flick on the back. Now I'm just going to come in and with my cotton bud just sort of dislodge any of those little flecks that I don't want in there. Okay, and then I'm going to take that over to my heat tool and heat that up, but just for the sake of time, those are too corny to say here's one I prepared earlier. Let's have a look. There we go. Okay, so this one I'm going to use Pineapple Punch, but I'm also going to add the shading with Mango Melody. Now with these new ink pads, I don't like to squeeze them. Well, I find it hard to squeeze them. So what I do is I just get, these are just B stamping blocks, and I just pop a bit of the ink on the corner of each one, and then that works as my palette. So I've got my aqua painter, and just off to the side here I've got an old washer that I can use with my aqua painter. Now I like to just start by popping a little bit of water on the bauble. Try not to saturate it too much, but what that does is it just gives you the time, or a bit of extra time, to do your blending and your shading. I'm just going to move this around. Don't be afraid to move your image around. Now with the other bauble cards that I've done, I've only used one colour, but because this is a bit lighter, I thought that I would go in and use the Mango Melody for shading. So I'm just going to put these in, and then I'm going to come back with my Pineapple Punch. Now I'm trying to leave a bit sort of on this top third with not much colour in it, and you can just with your brush wipe a bit off, and that just sort of gives a bit like the reflection to show that it's sort of rounded and spherical. Let's go on to the next one, and as it dries it'll become darker and they'll blend nicely. So just like I did before, I'm just going to add a bit of water just to give me that bit of extra time for blending. Nearly running out of Pineapple Punch on there. I'll just grab a bit more from my ink pad. Let's just go back in and put some shading in. I love these two colours together. I think they're really, really lovely. And you can see, because you've got that embossed edge, your watercolouring is all enclosed in there. Oops, might have gone a bit dark there, so I'm just going to come back in with my Pineapple Punch and sort of soften that off a bit. So it's just as easy that, so you can see how quick and easy it's been to just quickly whip up these cards. And then it's just as simple as getting a piece of your cardstock, whether it's A4 or letter, and cutting it in half long ways, scoring and folding it, and then you need to cut a mat that's just a little bit bigger than your other piece. So this mat is 9.5 by 13.8 centimeters, or if you're using letter size cardstock, it's 3 3/4 by 5 inches. And I've just raised that on the card front with foam adhesive foam adhesive strips, sorry. It just makes it, gives it that really lovely look, and as you can see, that's starting to dry, and I think that's going to be a really fun, bright Christmas card. Now I'm not going to stick this on while I'm making this video because it's still wet and it'll go a bit whoopy if I put that on, so I'm just going to sit that on there to show you how I would make it. I'm also going to get my envelope, my very vanilla envelope. I'm going to stick that underneath because that's going to give me a guide as to how far I can make my sentiment stick out. So if I bring back my other one, the sentiment, you can see it sticking out over the edge. Okay, so for the sentiment, I just cut a strip of 3.5 centimeter wide watercolor paper, and I think that's, I'd have to measure it. I was all organized and there's one thing I didn't measure, so let's just quickly measure that. So if you're working in inches, so that's 1 3/8 of an inch wide. So I just did a few at the same time, and I stamped the May Your Christmas Be in Versamark and used the black embossing powder to heat emboss it, and then with the different colors I've just stamped bright on there. So here's my one in Pineapple Punch, and then I've just used the triple banner punch to get the ends, and I've used a border of Pineapple Punch, or a backing strip of Pineapple Punch, and let it stick out on either side. So I can go ahead and stick that on just with some Stampin' Dimensionals. Now I haven't put any Stampin' Dimensionals on the end here because that's going to be sticking out. Okay, so I'll just make sure that that's sort of lined up where it's going to be. I'm using my envelope as a guide because you need to be able to put that back. So I'll just line it up with that, and I'll stick this on and I'll show you a picture of it finished later on. So we'll just take that envelope off now. Now the only thing left to do is to stick some ribbons on there. So I've got this really lovely Pineapple Punch ribbon, and I've already tied some bows, and I'm going to use another great tool that's in the new holiday catalogue. It's called the Take Your Pick tool. On one end it's got like a sticky putty, and you can use it to pick up sequins and all sorts of things, but on the other end it's got a tool that you can turn around. There's two different ones. I'm just using this one, but it's got this great sort of thin spatula on it, and it is perfect for picking up your glue dots. So I'm just going to peel the backing back of my glue dot, use my spatula to pick it up, and then pop it on there. Oh, let's just try that again. So I picked it up. Can you see it on the end there? I think you can. And then I'm just going to place it down. How easy is that? And then I'm just putting these bows that I've already tied on, just like that. And then I'll just come in and trim the edges with my trusty scissors, my paper snips. So I'll just trim the ends. I think this one might be my favourite yet. There we go. So it's just a fun watercoloured bauble set of cards, and of course I'll just wait for that to dry so that I can finish it. But if I just stick that on there, you can see how fun is that. Don't forget to click on the link below for the next person and continue the video hop and check out all the information on my blog and continue the blog hop there. Bye everybody.